Today we're building a filament shelf. I'm going to design everything myself and I'm going to show you a ton of ideas I had. Anyone can learn something today and get inspiration for their own filament storage. Most importantly, I will show you how many problems actually appear if you design your own product. Let's start with the different filament shelf concepts. I'm obviously not the only one who came up with this brilliant idea. 3 years ago I already printed a filament shelf, but I didn't invent it myself. I just downloaded it from the internet, and the problem with that model was that you had to drill it in the wall. I really didn't want to do that this time. The problem is I have a 3D printing corner here and filament is lying around everywhere and it's pretty messy. My first idea was to take an IKEA shelf like this one here, remove the middle components and then build the same concept into it. So mount brackets on both sides and then run a road through the middle. But that's created quite a few problems. Number one, the shelf becomes extremely unstable and you would have to screw ankle brackets onto the sides. I would have tried it, but I measured it and found out that the thing fortunately doesn't fit under my desk. After that, I had the idea to build a modular system. I had seen this design on printables, but to be honest, it didn't convince me. It looks relatively unstable. On Etsy, I also saw a similar idea. Someone built a modular shelf using 3D printing and some woodwork, but none of that convinced me, so I needed to develop my own concept. I spent, no joke, 10 minutes sitting under my desk on a Saturday night thinking up a concept. The most important thing for me is actually that I can access the filament relatively easily and I don't have to bend down. The problem I have with these boxes are that I have no clue how much filament I have, and to be honest, I'm a little bit too lazy to always open the box, go to the bottom, search my filament and so on. My idea is connecting the whole thing to the desk. And so instead of drilling into the wall, I will drill into my desk, basically building the bracket right underneath it. I think that sounds brilliant, and this here was my first sketch. When designing, I always start by just going for it without any numbers or measurements, just to get a concept on screen. The plan: screw 4 brackets onto the bottom and then lay 2 wooden dowels across them. I then got to designing and tried a lot of things until I finally designed the optimal bracket. There is a lot to consider here. First of all, that all the screws fit, because we obviously don't want a screw poking out through the top of the desk. So I measured the tabletop thickness, measured my screws and used the difference as the bracket thickness. We're all 3D printing fans, so of course we have to over-engineer it. And I printed it with a way too complex material. I used polycarbonate, specifically PC blend from Prusa. The advantages of PC is that it's relatively strong and don't weigh much. But to be honest, PTG would have done the job too. But this is way more fun. To screw in the brackets, I use these spug screws, which I can now easily dive into the desk with the Fanttik S1 Pro. That works pretty well, except it's an awkward position because I have to lie under the desk and get all the dust in my face. Fanttik also sponsored this video, especially if you're doing a lot of work around the house or tinkering with your 3D printer. The E2 Ultra is genius. You get a large number of bits that you can view through this nice rotating case, and you can take it anywhere. You can also charge it easily with USB-C. You can really use it for everything, and especially for fine work, it's incredible. The housing is also made of aluminium and everything is high quality. I've personally been using this screwdriver for over a year now personally. Especially when working on a 3D printer, it's great. It's really good. You can check the first link in the description. After that was taken care of, we move on to the wood. Turned out to be a much bigger challenge than expected. I measured the distance between the brackets and we need a 1.30 m round double. But at Bauhaus they only had 2.4 meters and they weren't willing to cut them for me either. But apparently it didn't work with their machine. I have to say, I felt slightly ripped off. For these 2 pieces of wood, I paid 36 euros. Anyway, near the entrance, they had a handsaw and a broken tape measure. I used some teaser tape to measure out the right length and start sawing. After a way too long time, I had 4 pieces. I actually wanted to leave the 2 leftover pieces behind it, but luckily I didn't because they become relevant in a moment. Everything loaded into the car and off home. This here shows why you should take your time when designing a product or planning it. Because the wood didn't fit onto the brackets and I don't want to remove all the brackets, reprint them, so I need another solution. At home I unfortunately don't have a power saw. So I clamped a piece of wood to our garden table and sawed it off this corner. Once through the middle and then once again from the side. I did it for all the sides and it easily took half an hour. You really underestimate how tiring and time consuming this is with just a handsaw. Anyway, after that I could finally place the wood onto the brackets. Now comes the next problem. The wood is relatively thick, which means no spool fit anymore. So I have to store the spools horizontally. And now it pays off that we kept the leftover wood. The thing is, theoretically it would work like this. But it's boring like this. We're engineers, so we need to overcomplicate the thing. So I thought it would be nice to add a rope at the back, so the filament doesn't fall through. So again, everything measured and a small bracket design. That works perfectly too. Then I noticed that we actually have 2 rods there, so I adjusted the brackets again. That's also super simple, just double these flat surfaces and add a second circle on top. Done. After the prototype looks great, I print the final version with ASA, why not? Now we can install that too. Again with screws into the desk and we have a unique filament shelf that nobody else has. I had one more pretty wild idea. 1 row of filament is cool, but 2 are even better. My idea is kind of building a coat hanger system for filament. For that I would drill into the 2 angled sides of the desk, install another bracket there and then drop a rod in the middle. Then you could hang coat hanger style holders for filament on this rod where 2 filaments fit onto each holder. Would you be interested in seeing that? The thing is, what I would do all of this again. 100%. It's probably not the best design ever, but it's my design. Well, I get some inspiration from the previous model, but I've never seen someone building a filament shelf onto their desk. Maybe someone has did it in the past, but I have never seen it. If you saw something like this, please write it in the comments. I think everyone should do their own projects because you will learn a lot through the process. If you need more 3D printing ideas, watch this video and leave a subscription.